Let's go back to the drama surrounding Bob Mueller's televised appearance. Joining us now from Charleston, South Carolina, is Alan Dershowitz, the Harvard law professor who wrote the introduction for the Mueller report, the final report of the special counsel into Donald Trump, Russia, and collusion. And let me start you by asking you this. How do you think the media have covered Bob Mueller, especially in his televised appearance this week, perhaps as an upstanding figure trying to get at the truth?
No, I think what's happened is the media always substitutes wishful thinking for careful analysis. If there had been a Mueller report about Hillary Clinton or a Democrat, and Mueller had done the same thing he did here, that is basically say, look, if the information had proved that he was totally innocent, we would have said so. Many in the media would have attacked that as beyond the scope, the proper scope of a prosecutor. The media does not pass the shoe on the other foot test. That is, if the political parties were reversed, the media would not be consistent. It would always accept kind of its ideology over reporting. And I think particularly pundits, the reason so many pundits have been wrong in predicting things, and the reason I've been right about predicting almost everything, is not that I'm any smarter. It's just that I don't substitute wishful thinking for careful legal analysis.
Now, you say that until his televised appearance, you were basically defending Bob Mueller as not being a partisan who favored one side or the other. First of all, did you get a lot of grief on that from your liberal friends?
Of course I did, and from both sides. I get grief from both sides constantly because I don't satisfy either side by my hopefully neutral analysis. But I had never thought that he was a partisan. But when he made that statement, he not only put his thumb, he put his elbow on the scale. It was clearly intended to encourage impeachment by the House. First of all, it is not the proper object of a special counsel to do the investigation for Congress. That violates the separation of powers. It's Congress that has to do its own investigation and has to take political responsibility for doing it. When they shunt that off over to special counsel and special counsel takes the responsibility, it really destroys our system of checks and balances.
But if Mueller was trying to encourage, as you say, pro-impeachment Democrats on the Hill, he wasn't exactly explicit about it. In fact, when he quoted the Constitution as saying, well, there's another remedy for this, it's not the criminal justice system, he was quoting a DOJ memo about not being able to indict a sitting president. So what makes you so sure? Because this has been the media line that he's urging Congress to impeach, and I didn't hear those words.
Well, you didn't hear those words, but I thought the music was quite clear. And if he learned nothing new during the report about the Justice Department regulation or about the Constitution, on day one he knew he could not indict a sitting president under Justice Department regulations. And so really the question comes up, why did we have a special counsel at all? Why didn't we have a nonpartisan, independent expert commission looking into Russian efforts to influence our election, which are continuing in the 2020 election? That would have been the way to go, especially in light of the fact that we now know that the Justice Department and Mueller concluded that the result of this special counsel could not be the indictment of the president.
Right. Well, part of the reason people would say that it was good that Mueller had the investigation was a nonpartisan commission can't indict Russians, can't indict people like Paul Manafort and Flynn and some of the others who got caught up.
What benefit came out of indicting the Russians? The Russians can't be charged. Manafort was indicted for something unrelated. As the judge in the Manafort case said, prosecutor wasn't interested in Manafort. They were just interested in squeezing him to make him sing, perhaps even compose, against President Trump.
Right.
And so what was the purpose of that? I just think it was a futile effort, and it would have been much better to have a nonpartisan investigation like we had after 9/11. If the nonpartisan investigation comes up with evidence of crimes, then that could be turned over to ordinary prosecutors.
You say, and I agree as an old Justice Department reporter, that prosecutors are not supposed to trash people. If you don't indict, you don't do what Jim Comey did and hold a news conference, say this is a bad person who did terrible things. But Mueller, as an independent counsel, was supposed to write a report to the Attorney General, and the report, as he sees it, lays out the facts. That was his job.
Well, his job was to file a report with the Attorney General. There's nothing in the rules that say that the negative and critical material about innocent people should be released to the public. I suspect we've seen the last special counsel. I hope Congress will have hearings to try to determine whether or not special counsel should be trashed the way the special prosecutor was. I think we have seen the death knell of special prosecutors, special counsel. I think, and I hope, the Mueller report is the last special counsel report we ever had. It's inconsistent with the role of prosecutors. It's inconsistent with the presumption of innocence, and it's inconsistent with the constitutional system of separation of powers.
Well, it does raise the question of how an administration would investigate itself. But let me move on to this. You wrote in The Hill, shame on Mueller for abusing his position of trust. Those are really strong words, obviously, against the former FBI director. Would you also say that President Trump has gone too far with his constant personal attacks on Mueller, 18 angry Democrats, witch hunt, and a hoax, and all that?
When a person is the subject of an investigation, he or she has the right to fight back. Would I have chosen different words? Of course, that's the president's style. But I think there's an enormous difference between those conducting an investigation and those who are the subject of the investigation. People choose. Some choose to ignore the investigation, remain silent. Some choose to fight back. You know, I didn't vote for President Trump, but the people who did understood what they were getting. They were getting a man who was always going to fight back and never going to sit back and simply say, well, I accept this, let the process go forward.
Professor, I've got half a minute. Judge Andrew Napolitano, Fox's senior judicial analyst, takes a somewhat different view. He says what Mueller is saying is we could not say he did not commit a crime, the president did not commit a crime, fill in the blank, because we believe he did. Do you disagree with Judge Knapp's analysis?
I fundamentally disagree. I like Judge Napolitano, but I really want to challenge him to a debate. I want Fox to show that they present both sides of the issue, unlike some of the other media. So, Judge, please agree to debate me on Fox or anywhere else, and let's have our differences out. Let the American public decide who's correct, you or me. These are reasonable disagreements, reasonable arguments, and important ones. Let's have a rational and civil debate.
Well, I'd be happy to host that debate, and we could have popcorn and sell tickets. Alan Dershowitz, always good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
One of the Democrats joining the call for impeachment hearings, freshman New Jersey Congressman Tom Malinowski. Congressman, your Democratic colleague James Clyburn said today that he believes impeachment proceedings will begin at some point, but that Democrats must first build a case. So my question for you is, what more of a case do Democrats hope to build that would be different from what Robert Mueller, the special counsel, has already put forward?
Well, that's a very good question. I think Special Counsel Mueller put forward a pretty ironclad case for obstruction of justice, and ever since the report was released, we've had more obstruction. We've had the president essentially ordering people to disobey legally binding subpoenas. We've had the president continuing to call the FBI a treasonous institution, to use the Justice Department and now the intelligence community against his political enemies. At some point, and you know, I'm one of those Democrats, the only I word I wanted to focus on was infrastructure, but I also swore an oath to the Constitution and to the rule of law, and I think it's time for us to take the actions that are necessary to take that oath seriously.
I guess what I'm getting at is Democrats keep saying that we need to build the case, but hasn't the case already been built? Why not now just decide whether or not to move forward with impeachment or not?
I think it is really important to have the American people on our side, but the way to persuade the American people to take this seriously is for them to see lawmakers in the Congress taking it seriously. So I do think we need to be the leaders here in presenting the information and the case through hearings that are tied to the question of whether the president should be impeached. I think that will capture the intention of the American people, just like Mueller's press conference did. Most people didn't read the report, but they did listen to what Mr. Mueller had to say, and I think they certainly would if and when he comes to testify at hearings that are geared towards answering that fundamental question.
Congressman, most of the 56 House Democrats calling for impeachment are from deep blue districts, but you're not. You're from a very Republican-leaning district in New Jersey. Are you worried at all about the potential political repercussions for you now that you've come forward and called for impeachment?
I don't think anybody knows what the political repercussions are going to be at this crazy time. I do know I just spent the last week, Memorial Day, in my district. I spoke to hundreds of people, many of whom encouraged me to continue to take the stand. Others felt that it's extremely complicated, but they have faith that I will make the right decision. They want me to use my judgment in the best interest of the country. So my message to my leadership is, don't worry, we've got this. We can talk to folks in our districts and explain what we're doing, which is basically the most patriotic thing that any representative in the Congress can do, and that is to defend the Constitution and the rule of law, to establish there are some rules in our country that can't be broken.
You said that you initially wanted to focus more on the other I word, infrastructure, not impeachment. And it seems that, that's in line with what most Americans want. Let's pop up this latest Fox News poll, which shows that, most Americans do not want President Trump to be impeached. So as we head into 2020, are you at all concerned that this could help President Trump?
Again, I don't think there's any historical precedent for the situation we're facing. I don't think there's any poll that can tell us what the political implications will be over the next year and a half. I do know this, that whether we move to impeachment proceedings or not, the news will be dominated by the daily activities of the president trying to obstruct justice and violate the norms of the country. Look, over the weekend, it was the incident with the USS McCain, trying to politicize the United States Navy to protect the president from being angry. I'd like to talk about infrastructure, but that kind of stuff is going to happen again and again and again. And I think it's just crazy to think that we can avoid the distraction. I think we need to confront it. We need to confront it in a principled way, consistent with our constitutional duty.
Congressman Malinowski, thank you.